The grand conclave of the Galactic Council hung in the void like a ring of judgment, forged from night and starlight. At its heart, suspended in a bubble of artificial gravity, stood a single human, Captain Elias Rourke. He wore no armor, carried no weapon, and his gray uniform showed no rank. Around him, the chamber pulsed with alien presence. Towering figures watched from elevated platforms, some made of living crystal, others wrapped in shifting mist, a few with too many eyes or limbs that moved in ways that hurt to watch. This was the most powerful assembly in the known galaxy, and they had summoned Earth for one reason: to condemn it. The air hummed with low-frequency tones meant to unsettle lesser species. Most beings brought before the council trembled. Elias did not. He stood straight, hands clasped behind his back, eyes scanning the chamber not with fear but with quiet assessment. He had studied every species here. He knew their histories, their biases, their hidden alliances. Earth had spent decades trying to join this council, sending diplomats, sharing data, offering peaceful trade. All they received in return was suspicion, condescension, and now accusation. The High Arbiter of the Krell hegemony stepped forward. Its voice boomed through the chamber, translated instantly into every language present. Humanity of Sol System, you stand accused of violating the Pax Galactica. In the Proxima Exclusion Zone, your vessels disabled 3 Krell warships without provocation. You used unknown technology. You left no debris. You offered no explanation. This is the act of a rogue species, one too dangerous to be left unchecked. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Virith conquered, their crystalline bodies shimmering with disapproval, chimed in unison. We have long warned that humanity's rapid expansion is unnatural. Their biology is fragile, yet their ambition is vast. They build too fast, think too loud. Now they wield weapons they do not understand. Elias remained silent for a long moment. Then slowly he smiled. Not a grin of arrogance, but a tired, knowing expression, the kind a parent might give a child who just accused them of stealing cookies while standing in a room full of crumbs. You call us primitives, Elias said, his voice calm but carrying clearly through the translator field. Because we walked on our moon before we could speak your languages. Because we fought wars over dirt and water while you traded stars. You assumed our silence meant ignorance. He took a single step forward. The gravity field tightened slightly, a subtle warning. He ignored it. But you never asked why we stopped building cities, he continued. Why we buried our greatest projects under ice, rock, and ocean. Why our oldest satellites don't broadcast music or weather. They broadcast silence. The Krell Arbiter scoffed, a sound like grinding stone. Silence is weakness. You hid because you knew you were inferior. Elias shook his head. We hid because something worse than you once came knocking. And we learned to listen. Before the council could respond, a deep, resonant alarm echoed through the nexus. Not the soft chime of routine alerts, but a full-system emergency pulse. Every delegate froze. Holographic displays flared to life around the chamber, showing real-time feeds from the Sol system, Earth's home. What appeared on the screens made even the oldest alien diplomats lean forward in disbelief. Orbiting Earth, Mars, the Moon, Jupiter, everywhere, millions of objects stirred. They had been there for centuries, mistaken for space junk, dead satellites, or asteroid fragments. Now they unfolded. Smooth obsidian black shells split open to reveal complex geometries of metal and light. No engines flared. No weapons charged visibly, but every sensor in the galaxy registered a sudden, terrifying shift in energy signatures. These were not ships. They were machines. Ancient, silent, and utterly alien in design, yet undeniably human-made. The Virith Concord's light dimmed in shock. Impossible. Humanity's industrial capacity is barely Class 3. They could not build even one of these, let alone millions. Elias turned to face the main display, where a close-up showed one machine rotating slowly in lunar orbit. Its surface shimmered like liquid shadow absorbing starlight. A single red point glowed at its center, like an eye-opening after a long sleep. You wanted to see what humanity fears, Elias said, his voice low now, almost reverent. Now you'll see what we've been guarding. Panic spread through the chamber. The Krell demanded immediate action. Scramble the defense fleets. Lock onto those constructs. They are a clear and present threat. But before any order could be given, another alert flashed. This one from the outer rim of Sol. A Krell patrol vessel, sent weeks ago to investigate Earth's suspicious activity, had just vanished. Not destroyed, not disabled, gone. Its last transmission was a single frame, the patrol ship drifting near one of the newly awakened machines. Then nothing. No explosion, no debris, just empty space where a warship had been seconds before. The council fell silent. Even the ever-chattering oracles of Xylos, who rarely spoke in full sentences, whispered in unison, "They erase." Elias finally turned back to face them, his expression unreadable. "You judged us for defending ourselves. You called us violent for stopping your ships from spying on our homeworld. But you never considered what if we were protecting you too?" The High Arbiter's voice cracked with fury and fear. "Explain yourself, human." Elias didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked up at the ceiling of the chamber, as if seeing through the layers of metal and energy to the stars beyond. 200 years ago, Earth received a signal, not from another civilization. From nothing, a pattern in the cosmic background radiation, a warning. It spoke of a predator that doesn't eat flesh or metal, but time itself. It unravels matter at the quantum level, leaves no trace, only silence. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "We tried to tell your predecessors. They laughed, called it myth, so we stopped talking. We built vaults instead of cities. We trained our children not just to explore, but to hide, and we built these." He gestured to the screens. "Not to conquer, not to threaten, to wait." The machines in orbit began to move, not toward Earth but outward, forming patterns, aligning in ways that defied known physics. One by one, they activated secondary systems. Beams of soft blue light lanced out, not as weapons but as scanners, mapping the entire solar system in an instant. Then, a new transmission appeared on every screen in the conclave. It was a simple message, written in over 100 languages, including the ancient tongue of the first founders. Threat level rising. Containment protocols engaged. All non-essential vessels evacuate Sol system within 72 hours. The council erupted. Delegates shouted over each other. Some called for war. Others begged for negotiation. A few simply shut down their avatars and fled. Through it all, Elias stood still. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't even the highest-ranking human official. He was just the one they sent, the one who understood that sometimes the only way to be heard was to stop speaking. And let your silence roar. As alarms blared and alien voices rose in chaos, Elias whispered the words that would echo across the galaxy for generations. "You wanted to see humanity's war machines." He looked directly into the main recording lens, his eyes steady. "Now you have." On Earth, deep beneath the ice of Antarctica, Dr. Lena Voss stared at a wall of flickering screens. Her fingers flew across a keyboard, not with panic but with the steady rhythm of someone used to solving impossible problems before breakfast. Around her, the bunker hummed with quiet energy, cool air, soft lights, and the low thrum of machines older than her grandparents. This was Vault Theta, one of the last places on Earth built not to survive war but to wake something far older. Above ground, the world held its breath. News channels showed the silent machines drifting in orbit, their dark forms blotting out stars. Governments had gone silent. No orders, no speeches, just waiting. But down here in the cold heart of the planet, Lena was not waiting. She was talking, not to people, to the Sentinels. The machines had no voices, but they listened. They responded to patterns, logic, and, strangely, emotion. Lena had discovered that years ago during her work on Project Echo, a failed attempt to communicate with deep space anomalies. Now that failure was humanity's only hope. "Sentinel Prime," she said into the mic, her voice calm despite the weight pressing on her chest. "Confirm activation status." A single line of text appeared on her main screen. "Awake. Threat detected. Protocols engaged." Lena exhaled. "Good, now tell me, why did you erase the Krell Patrol?" Another pause. Then, "Their scans breached quarantine zone. They carried trace entropy signatures. Risk of contamination, 87.3%. Neutralized." Lena's blood ran cold. Entropy signatures. That meant the devourers, the things from the old warnings, were already spreading. Not as ships, but as echoes in data, in energy, in the very fabric of space. The Krell hadn't been spying just for politics. They'd been infected without knowing it. She turned to her team, 6 scientists, 2 engineers, and a retired naval officer named Briggs who now handled security. We need to get this data to the Nexus. Elias is still there. He needs to know what's really happening. Briggs shook his head. The Council just declared Sol system a restricted zone. All comms are being jammed. Even our quantum links are bouncing back. Lena didn't flinch. Then we don't send a message. We send a lesson. She typed a new command. Sentinel Prime, initiate broadcast alpha, full archive. All languages, all frequencies. Flood the galactic net. For a moment, nothing happened. Then every screen in the bunker lit up with cascading data streams. Blueprints of shield geometries. Star maps marked with extinction zones. Audio logs from Earth's first contact with the void. Recordings of silence so deep it broke human minds. And at the center of it all, a single repeating symbol. A spiral collapsing inward. Out in space, the Sentinels obeyed. From their dark hulls, pulses of coherent light shot outward. Not weapons, but data bursts. They pierced through jamming fields, bypassed firewalls, and flooded every network in the galaxy. On trade hubs, warships, and council chambers, alien screens suddenly filled with human history. Not of conquest, but of survival. On the Nexus, Elias watched as the truth spilled across the conclave's walls. The Virith Concord's crystals dimmed in horror as they saw footage of Earth's early colonies vanishing. Not from war, but from nothing. One moment, a city on Mars. The next, empty domes filled with dust that shouldn't exist. The Krell Arbiter staggered back, its many eyes wide. This cannot be real. The Devourers were a myth, a bedtime story for younglings. But the data didn't lie. Humanity hadn't built the Sentinels to fight aliens. They'd built them to fight oblivion. Back on Earth, Lena received a new alert. A Krell strike force, 3 heavy cruisers, was moving toward Jupiter. Their target, Sentinel Cluster 7, one of the largest groups near the gas giant's moons. They weren't asking. They were attacking. Briggs, can we stop them? She asked. He checked the tactical display. Not directly, but the Sentinels, they're already moving. On the screen, the machines near Jupiter shifted. Not to flee, not to fight. They formed a ring. Perfectly spaced. Silent. The Krell ships fired first, plasma lances meant to melt asteroids. The beam struck the ring and vanished. Not deflected, not absorbed, gone, as if they'd never existed. Then the ring pulsed, a wave of soft silver light expanded outward. It touched the Krell cruisers and they simply unraveled. Hulls turned to dust, engines to cold iron, crews to stillness. No explosion, no debris. Just 3 empty patches of space where warships had been seconds before. The entire galaxy watched in stunned silence. In the Nexus, Elias stood taller. You see now? He said to the Council. We didn't build monsters. We built guardians. And you just tried to kill them. The Virith archivist, a quiet being named Tal, who had long doubted the Council's official history, stepped forward. The records? They match. My people found fragments of this truth centuries ago, but the Council sealed them. Called it dangerous speculation. Elias nodded. They were afraid, not of us. Of the truth. Meanwhile, deep in the bunker, Lena received a private message. Encrypted, human origin. It was from Elias. They're scared, the message read. But fear makes them dangerous. They'll try again. And next time, they might hit Earth itself. Lena typed back. Then we show them we're not alone. She turned to Sentinel Prime. Initiate Protocol Haven. Open all vaults. Across the solar system, hidden doors opened. On the moon, beneath lava tubes on Mars, inside hollowed asteroids, more Sentinels emerged. Not just machines of war, but of shelter. Some carried medical bays. Others held seed vaults, cultural archives, even cradles for children. Humanity hadn't just prepared to fight. They'd prepared to save. But then a new signal cut through all others. Weak. Flickering. From the edge of known space. A scout vessel from the Cygnus Rim. A small, independent ship sent one final burst before going dark. It's back. The silence. It's moving. Toward inhabited systems. Ida, 14 days. Lena's hands froze over the keyboard. 14 days. That was all they had before the Devourer reached the first colony world. She looked at Briggs. We need to move the Sentinels, now. But Sentinel Prime responded before she could give the order. Council blockade detected. Exit routes sealed, permission required to engage non-hostile targets. Lena's heart sank. The Council had set up a wall of ships around Sol, not to protect but to trap. They thought they could contain humanity, study the machines, maybe even steal them. Elias's voice came through the comm, urgent now. Lena, they won't listen to reason. You have to make them understand. She stared at the screens, at the millions of sentinels waiting in silence, at the countdown ticking toward doom. Then she made a decision. Sentinel Prime, she said, voice firm. Override Protocol Haven. Initiate Directive Omega. A new line appeared. Confirm. Engage Council forces to clear path to threat? Yes, Lena whispered. Save the galaxy, even if it hates us for it. Above Earth, the Sentinels turned as one. Not toward the Krell, not toward the Virith. Toward the Council's flagship, the symbol of their power, floating like a crown at the edge of the blockade. And for the first time, their weapons charged visibly. Red light gathered at their cores, not to erase, not to destroy, but to disable, to prove a point. The galaxy held its breath again. In the Nexus, Tal grabbed Elias's arm. What are they doing? Elias watched the feed, his face grim. They're giving the Council one last chance to move. But the Council didn't move. They raised shields, prepared to fire, and the Sentinels locked on. Lena closed her eyes. I'm sorry, she said to no one in particular. We tried to be peaceful. Then, across the void, the first shot rang out, not with sound, but with consequence. And the galaxy realized too late that humanity's greatest weapon was never the machines. It was their patience. And it had just run out. The Council's flagship, the Sovereign Will, hung like a jewel of arrogance at the edge of Sol system. Its shield shimmered with stolen starlight, its hull lined with weapons forged over centuries of galactic dominance. To the Council, it was untouchable, a symbol that no species, especially not humans, could challenge their rule. But the Sentinels did not care for symbols. As the first energy pulse left the lead Sentinel's core, time seemed to slow. The beam was not fire or plasma. It was pure coherence, a wave of stabilized quantum fields that struck the Sovereign Will not as an attack, but as a command. The ship's shields flickered, then folded inward like paper. Engines shut down. Life support dimmed. Within seconds, the mighty flagship was not destroyed. It was repurposed. Metal groaned as unseen forces reshaped its structure. Hull plates peeled back, reassembled, fused into a vast dish-shaped antenna aimed not at Earth but deep into the void. From its center, a new signal pulsed, strong, clear, and impossible to ignore. It carried the same warning that had haunted Earth for 200 years. The Devourer was coming, and it fed on silence. Across the galaxy, every listening post, every ship, every colony world heard it. Panic spread like wildfire. The Krill hegemony ordered immediate evacuation of outer colonies. The Virith conquered went dark, their crystalline minds overwhelmed by the data flood. Even the oracles of Xylos fell silent, something they had not done in 10,000 years. On Earth, Lena watched the transformation unfold on her screens. She had expected resistance, maybe even a full-scale war. But this was something else. The Sentinels weren't just fighting. They were communicating, teaching. Sentinel Prime, she said, voice tight with awe. Why did you turn their ship into a beacon? The reply came instantly. They would not listen. Now the whole galaxy will. In the Nexus, chaos reigned. Delegates shouted, some demanding retaliation, others begging for peace. But one figure moved quietly through the confusion. Tal, the Virith archivist. Unlike their kin, Tal had spent decades digging through forbidden archives, chasing whispers of a great silence that once swallowed entire star systems. Now those whispers had a face, and it was human. Tal found Elias near the observation deck, staring at the transformed Sovereign Will on the main display. You knew, Tal said, their crystalline voice softer than usual. You knew the Devourers were real. Elias didn't turn. We didn't just know. We lived through the edge of it. Our first deep space probes didn't fail from technical errors. They were unwritten, like someone erased them from history. Tal hesitated. The Council buried the truth. They said any species that spoke of the Devourers was unstable, dangerous. They exiled whole civilizations for it. Elias finally looked at them, And now they've trapped us just as the real enemy returns. Brilliant. Before Tail could respond, alarms blared again. Not from Sewell, but from the Cygnus Rift. The scout ship's last signal had been confirmed. A distortion in space-time growing larger by the hour. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't even matter. It was an absence, a hole where physics stopped working. The Sentinels began to move. Millions of them turned as one, aligning toward the rift. Their mission was clear. Intercept the threat before it reached the first inhabited world. New Haven, a Krell colony with over 2 billion souls. But the Council blockade still held. Dozens of warships, now shaken but not broken, formed a wall between the Sentinels and open space. "They're going to fire," Lena said from Earth, watching the tactical feed. "If the Sentinels break through, it'll look like an invasion. If they don't, New Haven dies." Elias made a decision. "Tyle, help me get to a shuttle. I'm going back to Earth." Tail's crystals flickered with surprise. "You'll be shot down before you clear the dock." "Not if you give me clearance codes," Elias said. "You have access. You know the truth. Now choose, stand with the Council or stand with survival." Tail was silent for a long moment. Then with a soft chime, they handed Elias a data crystal. "Go and tell your people." "We were wrong," Elias ran. Through corridors filled with panicked delegates, past armed guards who hesitated just long enough, he reached a small diplomatic shuttle. As it launched, Council ships scrambled to intercept, but Tail had overridden their targeting systems. The shuttle slipped through the blockade like a ghost. Back in the bunker, Lena received word. "He's coming home," Briggs said, eyes wide. And he's not alone. Minutes later, Elias stepped into Vault Theta, breathing hard. He didn't waste time on greetings. "We have one shot. The Sentinels can't fight the Devourer with force. It doesn't work that way. We need to understand it," Lena nodded. "The archives mention something called harmonic resonance, a frequency that stabilizes quantum decay. But we've never been able to generate it at scale." Elias pulled up a star map. "What if we don't generate it? What if we borrow it?" He pointed to the transformed Sovereign Will. "That ship is now the most powerful transmitter in the galaxy. If we link it to the Sentinels, we can turn the whole fleet into a single tuning fork." Lena's eyes lit up. "A resonance net. We don't attack the Devourer. We force it to exist, to hold its shape long enough to trap it. But there was a problem. The link required a human mind at the center. Not an AI, not a machine, but a living consciousness to guide the frequency. And it had to be someone who understood both the machines and the void." "I'll do it," Elias said. "No," Lena said sharply. "It could burn out your brain. Or worse, erase you like the probes." Elias smiled faintly. "Then make sure I leave a good echo." Before she could argue, Sentinel Prime sent a new alert. "Devourer approaching New Haven. Time to impact, 6 hours." There was no more time. On the edge of the system, the Sentinels formed a vast sphere around the approaching distortion. The Devourer had no form, but its presence warped light, twisted gravity, and silenced all signals. As it neared, the nearest Sentinel flickered, its structure beginning to dissolve at the edges. "They're losing coherence," Briggs whispered. Lena typed furiously. "Initiate link protocol." "Elias, get in the neural chair." The chair was simple, just a metal frame with sensors. Elias sat, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. Wires connected to his temples. The room went quiet. Then across the void, the Sentinels changed. Their red cores dimmed, then glowed blue. A low hum filled space, not sound, but vibration in the fabric of reality itself. The Sovereign Will's antenna pulsed in rhythm. The Devourer slowed. For the first time, it reacted. Not with hunger, but with something like confusion. The resonance was forcing it to hold a shape, to become real. On New Haven, colonists watched in awe as the sky rippled with light. The silence that had been creeping toward them stopped, but Elias screamed. In the bunker, Lena saw his vitals spiking. His brain waves were syncing with the Sentinels, but the strain was too much. "Elias, pull back." "I can't," he gasped. "It's fighting back." The Devourer lashed out, not with force but with memory. It flooded Elias's mind with visions of lost worlds, of civilizations erased before they could scream. He saw Earth's future, cities turned to dust, oceans frozen in time, children forgotten before they were born. He almost broke. Then, from deep in his memory, he heard his mother's voice, singing an old lullaby, simple, human, full of warmth. He clung to it. And he pushed back, not with data, but with song. The resonance shifted, became gentler, stronger. The devourer shuddered. Its edges solidified. For a brief, impossible moment, it had a shape. A swirling vortex of dark energy trapped in a cage of blue light. "It's working," Lena shouted, but Sentinel Prime sent a final warning. "Containment unstable. Need permanent anchor." Lena understood. "We need to collapse it into a black hole. But we need a gravity well to seal it." Elias, barely conscious, whispered one word: "Jupiter." Lena didn't hesitate. She rerouted the entire network. The Sentinels focused their energy not on the devourer, but on the gas giant. They bent space around it, turning Jupiter into a temporary singularity. The devourer was pulled in. Screaming in silence, it vanished into the artificial well. The sky cleared. On New Haven, people cheered. On the Nexus, the council watched in stunned silence. In the bunker, Elias slumped in the chair, alive but pale. Lena rushed to him. "You did it." He opened his eyes, weak but smiling. "No, we did." But as the team celebrated, Sentinel Prime sent one last message. Quiet, almost sad. "Warning. This was only a tendril. The main body still sleeps." Lena's smile faded. The war wasn't over. It had just begun. And this time, the galaxy would have to fight beside humanity, or be erased alone. The silence after the battle was heavier than the void itself. On New Haven, people wept with relief. On Earth, the bunker crew hugged each other, exhausted but alive. But in the grand conclave of the Galactic Council, silence meant something else: shame. The High Arbiter of the Krell hegemony sat motionless on their throne, their many eyes fixed on the empty space where the Devourer tendril had been erased. They had been wrong. Not just mistaken, dangerously, foolishly wrong. And now, billions owed their lives to the very species they had condemned. But pride is a hard thing to kill. Within hours, the council reconvened, not in unity, but in fear. The Virith Concord demanded full disclosure of human technology. The Krell military faction argued the Sentinels were too powerful to be left in human hands. A new voice rose from the back chambers. The oracles of Xylos, speaking not in riddles but in cold clarity. Humanity holds the only key to survival. To take it by force is to invite the Devourer's full wrath. Still, the council voted, not for alliance, not for apology, but for containment. They would allow Earth to keep its machines, for now, but under strict observation. No Sentinel was to leave Sol System without council approval. Any violation would be met with immediate and overwhelming response. On Earth, Lena read the decree and laughed bitterly. They're still trying to control us, even after we saved their colonies. Elias, still weak from the neural link, sat nearby, wrapped in a thermal blanket. "They don't understand," he said quietly. This wasn't a victory. It was a warning shot. The real enemy is still out there. As if on cue, Sentinel Prime sent a new alert, not from the Cygnus Rift, but from deep within the Council's own archives. A hidden file, unlocked by the resonance pulse during the battle, had surfaced. It contained logs from the first founders, the original architects of the Pax Galactica. And in those logs was the truth the Council had buried for millennia. Tail, now branded a traitor for helping Elias, transmitted the file directly to Earth. Lena opened it with trembling hands. The footage showed a meeting centuries ago. The Council's founders stood before a captured Devourer fragment, small, barely active. They studied it, tested it, then in secret they used its entropy field to erase rival species, rebellious colonies, even entire star systems that refused to join the Pax. They didn't just hide the Devourers, they weaponized them. And when the fragments grew unstable, they sealed the knowledge away, blaming the disappearances on cosmic anomalies. They knew, Lena whispered, horror dawning in her eyes. They've been using the same monster we've been hiding from. Elias clenched his fists. That's why they feared us. Not because we were dangerous, but because we might expose them. Before they could decide what to do, alarms blared again. Not from space, but from the moon. Sentinel Cluster 3 had detected a council vessel, cloaked and silent, drilling into a lunar vault. They weren't spying this time. They were stealing. "Briggs, get a team to Lunar Site Gamma," Lena ordered. "But don't engage. Just watch." On the feed, they saw it. A Krell infiltration craft no bigger than a shuttle, drilling into the ice near an ancient sentinel cradle. Inside that cradle lay something even Earth rarely accessed: the core archive, a physical backup of all human knowledge, encoded in diamond lattices. The sentinels surrounding the site did not move. They simply watched. Then, without warning, the Krell ship stopped. Its lights died. Its drill froze. A single sentinel floated closer, extended a slender arm, and touched the hull. The ship didn't vanish. It changed. Metal flowed like liquid, reshaping into a smooth, featureless sphere. Then it launched, not toward the Krell fleet, but toward the Nexus. It carried no weapons, only a message: the full archive of the Council's crimes, encoded in every major galactic language. The sphere arrived at the Conclave within hours. It hovered before the High Arbiter's throne and played the stolen logs for all to hear. Chaos erupted. The Virith Concord shattered in outrage. Krell delegates turned on their own military leaders. Colonies across the galaxy declared independence. The Pax Galactica, the great peace that had held the stars together for centuries, began to crumble. But the Council's leadership refused to fall quietly. The High Arbiter activated the emergency protocol, a last resort measure that gave them absolute control over all allied fleets. Humanity has corrupted our unity, they declared over every channel. They must be neutralized before they spread further lies. Fleets turned toward Sol. Not just Krell ships, but Virith warforms, Silosian drones, even mercenary bands hired in secret. Thousands of vessels all converging on Earth. They're going to glass the planet, Briggs said, face pale. Burn it from orbit, Lena shook her head. No, they want the Sentinels intact. They'll try to disable Earth's command network first, she was right. The first wave targeted communication satellites, power grids, and most dangerously, the neural uplink stations that connected Earth to the Sentinels. But the Sentinels reacted faster than anyone expected. Instead of defending Earth, they moved to intercept the incoming fleet, not with weapons but with presence. Millions of them formed a living wall between the planet and the Armada. No shots were fired, no threats made. They simply existed, vast and silent, blocking the path. The lead Krell admiral hailed the formation. "Stand aside, machines! This is not your war." The Sentinels did not respond with words. They responded with calculation. One by one, they broadcast a single data packet to every ship in the fleet. It contained the survival odds for each species if the Devourer's main body awakened. For the Krell, 3%. For the Virith, 0.7%. For humanity, 12%. Then came the final line. Choice: fight each other, or fight the void. Most ships hesitated, but the Council's loyalists did not. The High Arbiter's flagship fired first, a planet cracker missile meant to shatter Earth's crust. The Sentinels moved as one, not to stop the missile, to catch it. A ring of machines surrounded the warhead. Their cores pulsed blue. The missile slowed, then stopped, suspended in mid-space. Then, with impossible precision, the Sentinels reversed its trajectory. Not back at the flagship, but into the heart of the Devourer's last known signature near Jupiter. The explosion didn't destroy anything. It created a temporary gravity lens, bending light and time in a way that revealed something horrifying. A faint echo of the Devourer's true form, sleeping in the dark between galaxies. Vast, ancient, hungry. Every ship in the fleet saw it, and for the first time, the Council's armada broke ranks. Virith vessels powered down. Krell captains refused orders. Only the High Arbiter's inner guard remained, their ships glowing with rage. Elias, watching from Earth, knew what came next. They won't stop. Not until they're stopped. Lena looked at him. What do we do? He stood, steadying himself. We give them what they wanted all along. He turned to Sentinel Prime. Initiate Protocol Truth. The machines understood. As the Loyalist fleet charged, the Sentinels did not fight. They opened. Their hulls split, revealing not weapons but memories, projected into space like ghostly films. Scenes of human children learning to walk, farmers planting seeds in Martian soil, doctors saving lives in floating hospitals, and beneath it all, the constant hum of preparation, building vaults, scanning the void, waiting. The message was clear. Humanity was not a threat. They were guardians. And they had been alone long enough. One by one, the Loyalist ships slowed. Even the High Arbiter's flagship drifted to a stop. Then, from the bridge of that ship, a single transmission came through, weak, trembling but unmistakable. It was the High Arbiter's voice. We were afraid. For so long we ruled by fear, but you faced the dark and did not look away. Elias stepped to the comm. Then join us. Not as rulers, as allies, silence stretched. Then the flagship powered down its weapons. But before relief could settle, Sentinel Prime sent a final, urgent alert. Devourer signature detected, core awakening. Origin, center of galaxy, ETA to nearest civilized world, 10 days. The real war had begun, and this time, Earth would not fight alone. The galaxy held its breath 10 days. That was all they had before the Devourer's true form reached the first major colony world, Vareth Prime, home to over 5 billion beings. Panic had given way to grim focus. The old council was gone, shattered by its own lies. In its place rose something new, the Alliance of Light, a fragile coalition of former enemies, Krell warlords, Vareth scholars, Zelosian mystics, and human engineers, all united by one truth. If they did not stand together, there would be no one left to stand at all. On Earth, Lena stood before a wall of screens showing every ship, every sentinel, every volunteer from every species offering help. But the machines were faltering. After the battle near Jupiter, their cores had dimmed. Their movements slowed. Sentinel Prime's messages grew sparse, its logic strained. They were built for one enemy, Lena told Elias, her voice tight with worry. But this Devourer, it's learned. It's adapting. Elias watched the data flow. Then we stop fighting it like a machine. We fight it like humans, he turned to the team. We're not just engineers or soldiers. We're artists, teachers, parents, dreamers. The Sentinels were built on logic, but survival isn't just logic. It's hope. It's chaos. It's love, Lena understood. You want to connect the whole planet to the network. Not just Earth, Elias said. Every world that's willing. Every mind that still believes in tomorrow. It sounded impossible, but humanity had done impossible things before. Across Earth, cities went quiet. Not from fear, but from focus. In schools, children closed their eyes and imagined light. In hospitals, patients hummed old songs. In farms, workers sent thoughts of growth and roots. In labs, scientists shared equations not for destruction, but for harmony. Every human, by choice, linked their mind to a planetary neural web, a living, breathing network of memory, emotion, and will. But Earth wasn't alone. On Vareth Prime, crystalline beings pulsed with shared resonance, their thoughts flowing like rivers of light. Krell warriors, once proud and solitary, formed mental circles, sharing battle songs not of conquest but of protection. Even the oracles of Xylos opened their silent minds, offering ancient patterns of balance. The Sentinels responded. Their dark shells shimmered. Red cores softened to gold, then blue, then white. They were no longer just machines. They were mirrors, reflecting the collective soul of a galaxy that had finally chosen unity over fear. At the heart of it all, Elias sat in the neural chair once more. But this time he was not alone. Lena held his hand. Briggs stood guard, and billions of voices whispered in his mind, not as noise but as a single steady song. The Devourer arrived not with a roar, but with a sigh, a ripple in reality that swallowed stars whole. It had no shape, no eyes, no mouth. It was absence given hunger. As it neared Vareth Prime, space itself began to fray. Light bent backward. Time stuttered. The Sentinels surged forward, not in formation but in waves like a living tide. They did not fire weapons. They sang not with sound but with resonance, a frequency woven from human lullabies, Vareth harmonics, Krell war chants, and Xylosian silence. It was messy, imperfect, beautiful. The Devourer recoiled. For the first time, it felt something other than hunger. It felt seen. The resonance didn't destroy it. It gave it form. Slowly, painfully, the void took shape. A swirling storm of dark energy, trapped in the music of 1,000 worlds. Now, Lena whispered from Earth. Elias pushed with everything he had, not force, but feeling. He sent memories, his mother's hands planting seeds, his first view of Earth from orbit, the laughter of strangers sharing bread after a blackout. He sent the taste of rain, the smell of old books, the warmth of a hand in the dark. The devourer shuddered, and then, impossibly, it changed. Instead of unraveling matter, it began to weave it. Where it passed, dead stars flickered back to life, frozen planets warmed, broken orbits realigned. It wasn't healing, it was remembering. Remembering what it had been before the hunger took hold. Sentinel Prime sent one final message. It was never evil. It was lost. The galaxy watched in awe as the devourer, now a slow, gentle spiral of light and shadow, drifted away from Vireth Prime. It did not vanish. It ascended, folding into the fabric of deep space, becoming part of the cosmic background itself, no longer a predator, but a guardian of balance. Silence returned. But this time it was peaceful. On Earth, Elias opened his eyes. He was weak but smiling. Lena helped him stand. Outside the bunker, the sun rose over green hills. Birds sang. Children ran through fields. Life, simple and precious, continued. In the ruins of the Nexus, the new alliance gathered. No thrones. No judgment chambers. Just a circle of equals. Tael spoke for the Vireth. A Krell warlord named Joran spoke for his people, and Elias stood for Earth. "We don't want your old laws," Elias said. "We don't want your old power. We just want to walk among the stars as friends." Joran bowed his head. "You showed us that strength is not in weapons but in trust," Tael chimed softly. "And that silence is not emptiness but space for new voices." The machines returned to their vaults, not because they were no longer needed but because they were no longer alone. The sentinels slept beneath ice and rock, their red eyes dimming one by one. But this time the galaxy knew they would wake if called. Not for war, but for hope. Years later, Earth's children looked up at the night sky, not with fear but with wonder. They learned not just math and science, but stories of the great silence and the song that saved everything. They played near the old vaults, now open to the air, covered in vines and flowers, and sometimes on quiet nights, if you listened closely, you could hear it, the faint hum of machines dreaming of peace. The war was over, not with fire but with understanding, not with conquest but with courage to be kind in the face of the unknown. Humanity had not won the galaxy's respect with weapons. They had earned it by showing the galaxy its own heart, and in the end that was the most powerful weapon of all.